I was just casually driving down the road, minding my own business, and then BAM! An incompetent driver drives right into the back of my Tesla. Hello, and welcome back to Power Up. So this all happened a few months ago, and I recently got a letter back from the police explaining why they won't be investigating the crime any further, which I think's nuts, but I'll get onto that later in the video. So I was travelling down the A47, which is a road that's fairly familiar to myself, and it's surrounded by a lot of farms, so it's fairly standard to have tractors and other farm traffic on the road. Now the road is also covered by a lot of trees and it's quite undulating, so there can be some blind corners and darker areas where there are hazards. So anyway, on the day I saw a tractor up ahead and a train of cars behind it, so I slowly approached the back of the cars using the Tesla regen to slow myself down. Now with the Tesla regen it still applies a brake light, so for any other driver behind me they would see that I was slowing down. When I nearly come to a stop, I have a look in my rear view mirror and I see this other car approaching me at quite a high speed. I assume it's going to slow down in time, but as it gets closer I'm a bit worried. And then I see it swerve and I hear a thud. I indicated and pulled over to the side of the road and pressed the save recording on the dashcam button on the central display. I get out of the car to check on the other driver and exchange details. At this point he gets quite agitated and starts explaining that there was another car behind him that caused the incident initially. I calmly explained to him that my car has a number of cameras so that we'd be able to identify if the other driver was at fault. At this point he looks a bit worried and then he explains that we should go to somewhere a bit safer to exchange details. Now this road can be quite dangerous and we weren't in a very safe position. I agreed and mentioned we could stop at the farm a bit further down the road, and so I got back in my car and we started driving off. As I approached the roundabout at the end of the road, I indicate left to pull into the farm. At this point, he quickly turns right and pulls off down the other exit. I attempted to follow him initially, but he was driving at high speed and quite recklessly, so I decided to stop and just use the footage I got on my USB to contact the police and my insurance company. Now the dashcam is one of the best and unique features to the Tesla. Before I tell you what happens next in the story, let me explain how the Tesla dashcam works. The Tesla dashcam leverages the autopilot cameras to record your journey and provide you with evidence in the event of an accident or an interesting incident. The dashcam continuously records and then saves footage depending on your preferences. My recommendation is to enable auto and on honk. This will allow footage to be saved automatically in the event of a crash. You can always then press the save button at the top of the screen to guarantee that footage is saved. To enable this feature, you need to insert a flash drive or an SD card into USB port. I'd recommend a high endurance SD card as I found it's way more reliable than a standard flash drive. Once you've inserted your storage, then go into your settings and format it in Controls, Safety, and then press Format USB. You can review the footage on the car itself or remove it from the car and watch it on your computer later. Anyway, let's get back to the story. So I didn't manage to remember the number plate, but after getting home I reviewed the footage and I was able to get the number plate, the vehicle make and the colour quite easily. I quickly looked it up on the Gov UK website and asked MID, and I was able to confirm that it was taxed and insured, with matching details to the car, so I was fairly confident that the offender could be caught. So I immediately logged a report with the police and called my insurance company. And then again, the insurance company confirmed that they had a record of the other car's insurance, so they would be contacting their insurance provider for their details. And from the evidence I provided them, they thought it was clear that they would take full responsibility. At this point, I was so relieved that the car had a dashcam, and now I wouldn't consider a car without one. Now, a few weeks passed and I hadn't heard anything from my insurance or the police about the other driver being identified. After about a month or so, I received a letter back from the police saying that they would not be pursuing the case any further because they could not identify the driver because they were using false plates. I decided to then Google the registration and see what I could find. And then I found this advert with a grey Skoda matching the exact description of the car that I had a collision with. So clearly the offender in the other vehicle had an internet search for grey Skodas matching his car to get a false plate made up so he could commit any sort of crime he wanted. Whether that be just not paying tax and insurance or even worse crimes, like robberies. What annoyed me more than anything was how quickly the police gave up on investigating. Surely they could use ANPR cameras to identify duplicate plates, like flagging up across the country. But instead it seems like they're content to let these criminals carry on, going about their daily lives and allowing the rest of us to pay the price. Anyway, the dashcam is still one of the best features about owning a Tesla. However, check out this video to see how you can solve one of the worst problems about owning an electric car.